Invasive alien species are basically species which are found in a location or in a habitat which is not historically their original habitat. They have somehow managed to migrate to this new habitat, but there is an element of invasiveness in them. That means when they grow in their new habitat, they rather grow very aggressively, and that is often at the expense of the native species. In other words, जब उनका ग्रोथ होता है तो नेटिव स्पीसीज की ग्रोथ इनहिबिट हो जाती है और उससे नेटिव बायोडाइवर्सिटी थ्रेट होती है। सीबीडी के बहुत सारे मीटिंग्स में, दैट इज कन्वेंशन ऑन बायोलॉजिकल डाइवर्सिटी, तो सीबीडी की बहुत सारी मीटिंग्स में इन्वेजिव एलियन स्पीसीज हैव ऑफन फाउंड अ प्लेस in the top 5 causes that threatens the global biodiversity, often at number 4 or number 3 even in some cases. India is also facing a serious problem of invasive alien species, and this is a topic which is pretty important, especially from the example point of view for the prelim, and at the same time, a good question can also be framed in the main examination paper 3 under environmental ecology section. Let us get a systematic understanding of this topic in this short presentation. Let us first discuss the basics of invasive alien species. And yes, even they are shortened into IAS, but not that IAS that you are preparing for. This is invasive alien species. We will first start with the definition of invasive alien species. So like I was telling you, that they are the organisms that have been introduced outside of their natural past or present distribution or natural past or present habitat. And once they have been introduced somehow, it can be accidentally, it can be by a human factor, but if they have somehow been introduced, they will pose a significant threat to biodiversity or the ecosystem of their new environment. And how are they going to pose a threat? By basically spreading, by basically growing very, very aggressively. So here are a couple of key features which find a place in the definition of invasive alien species. The first thing is that they are non-native to a given ecosystem. For any ecosystem where we are considering them as invasive, they are non-native to that place. Second, oftentimes they are introduced by human activities, oftentimes. Rarely they can be introduced accidentally, but even that is some kind of human activity rather than just by forces of nature. So humans, either by mistake or sometimes by deliberation, by conscious effort, they introduce a species, and of course they do not know if the species has a potential to become invasive and it will be threatening the local biodiversity. Sometimes we import them, we introduce them with good intentions, but obviously those good intentions, they turn out to be kind of problematic in a later course of time. They are able to establish and pretty well spread at a new location and in a manner that causes harm to the new ecosystem and the biodiversity supported by this new ecosystem. When all of these criteria are met, we will not hesitate in calling a species invasive alien species. So these 4 elements must come in your definition of invasive alien species. Now, these are the characteristics of invasive alien species. First and foremost, they have a tendency to grow and reproduce at a rather rapid rate. This is the aggressive pattern of their reproduction, which makes them problematic to the new habitat and which makes them a threat to the new habitat's biological diversity. They have an ability to disperse also. So after reproduction, the seeds will be produced if it is a plant or if it is an animal. After reproduction, the young ones which will be produced, somehow they have this habit, this ability to spread and disperse very fast. And that way they will be able to colonize new locations much better than the native species. they have adaptability to the new environmental condition. Even if they have been translocated to a new location, yet they are pretty well able to adapt to the new location. So their range of adaptation makes them a good fit even in the new location. That is why they are able to establish. And in this new location, as their luck would have it, they do not have a natural predator or competitor. And because there is no natural predator or competitor, they will be growing unhindered. In many cases, they have had a history of successful invasions even elsewhere in the world, including their own habitat. Even in their own habitat, they will be showing a track record of spreading rather aggressively. They have phenotypic plasticity. Sometimes some invasive alien species, when they arrive at a new location, they change or modify their growth pattern in a manner that will make them better suited to the new condition. This is called phenotypic plasticity. That means they are able to bring about certain changes. Lastly, they are also having some sort of feeding flexibility. They can survive on various food types. That makes them again a good fit at a new location. As you can imagine, at a new location, it is not necessary that they will be having all the things, all the nutrients, and all the sources of food which they were enjoying at their original native location. Despite that, they are able to make use of whatever is available. And with these 7 characteristics, they are going to colonize a new habitat in a manner that will be pushing a number of native species out of the habitat. And that poses a threat to native biodiversity. And in this way, the invasive alien species become a threat to biological diversity. Moving to the next part of our discussion, now that we have understood what are invasive alien species, we are now going to see basically the processes which introduce such a species to a new location. And most often, either it is by accident or sometimes by deliberate design. These are the 2 methods by which they get introduced. Let us take a look here. So, with respect to India, water hyacinth, they were introduced in early 1900s. And then they ended up spreading rather rapidly, and they caused disruption of aquatic ecosystems by forming thick mat over the surface, and that ways they become an impediment to water flow. Here is a look on water hyacinth. Now, this is something you would have seen at so many places in lakes and all, where water hyacinth will grow very, very aggressively. And then it will be impeding the flow, it will be impeding the water transportation, and it will also be impacting the resources that you can harvest from these water bodies. This is water hyacinth. And then Prosopis juliflora, that is the kicker tree. So that was introduced through trade, but it spread rather rapidly through the arid region, and now it is causing degradation to the native ecosystem. Take a look here. So this is Prosopis juliflora, and you will be seeing Prosopis even in the scrub forests in Delhi, and also a lot of areas in Rajasthan, Haryana. So this is something people from these areas, they can readily identify ki haan ye dekha hai, right? So this is Prosopis juliflora, and it got introduced to India through trade. Now here is a look that we deliberately introduced. Okay. Now deliberate introduction would be ornamental introduction of lantana camara. Look at the bunch of flowers. They look so beautiful that they got introduced as an ornamental plant. But they tend to form such thick bushes that they have become a problem in so many protected areas of our country, including several national parks, many tiger reserves, and in a number of tiger reserves, the tiger reserve authorities have enlisted the help and support of the local community in uprooting the lantana bushes. So this is the extent of problem. It is extremely invasive and it impacts the local vegetation. Black wattle tree was brought in India for afforestation purposes because it showed rapid regeneration, rapid growth, and rapid reproduction. But today it has spread in a way in the Western Ghats region that it has become problem to the native species of Western Ghats. So these are two which have been introduced to our country by design, but they ended up becoming problematic. And then there are a couple of accidental introductions, and here there are two pests of important crops. One is for papaya, and this is a rather recent introduction. In 2008 in Tamil Nadu, in Coimbatore region, this discovery was made, papaya mealy bug, and it is a native of Mexico and Central America. And today we not only find it in Tamil Nadu, where it was first reported from, it is also reported from West Bengal and the state of Assam, and it destroys papaya crops, as you can see here. So this is the kind of growth, and it will be very firmly stuck on the surface of papaya fruits, and it causes significant damage. Okay, and then you have got cotton mealybug. So cotton mealybug is a native of North America, and cotton mealybug is the major pest of BT cotton. While BT cotton is pretty safeguarded still against the target insect, but now that it is pretty safeguarded against the target insect, so that is cotton bollworm, it is now increasingly being attacked by cotton mealybug. And in the Deccan region of India, we see the impact on cotton crops. So this is cotton mealybug. So now this is also an example where the crops are facing the detrimental consequences of invasive alien species. So we have seen like kind of accidental introductions, deliberate introductions, and also introduction just, I would say, just as a byproduct of trade and import of agricultural produce. So each one has some human intervention involved in most of the cases. Moving to the next part, which is kind of important for the prelim examination, और ये है examples of India. So there is a table, and the table runs into the next 3-4 slides, but you should be paying attention to this because here आपको वो examples मिलेंगे, the examples which are important for the prelim examination. Okay, so take a look here. So first and foremost, water hyacinth that we have discussed, Eichhornia, native of South America, and it is widespread across water bodies in our country, and it disrupts aquatic ecosystem, impedes water flow, and it also affects fishing and navigation. Then lantana we have spoken about, so from Central and South America, and it is widespread, especially in the Western Ghats, but its spread is also present in the Himalayan region. As a matter of fact, there is a special program that is being run in the Himalayan region to basically weed out lantana. And it forms dense thickets, like I told you, and it outcompetes the native vegetation, and it is also toxic to the livestock. Prosopis juliflora, we have just spoken about it. It's a tree. In arid and semi-arid regions, it grows and it degrades native ecosystems. It is also implicated in lowering the water table and affecting the native biodiversity. African catfish is a fish that predates on native fish species, and that way it alters the aquatic ecosystem, and it is widespread. इंडिया के जो रिवर्स हैं, कई सारे लेक्स हैं, वहाँ पे ये widespread है. Then papaya mealybug, we have already spoken about it. It destroys papaya crops, and it also affects other horticultural crops. Then we have got senna. It is a tree, and it is present in Mudumalai Tiger Reserve, and it crowds out native species and it limits availability for food availability for the wildlife. हमारा common carp that is widespread again in inland water, and this also alters aquatic habitat and competes with the native fish species. Parthenium is something the pollen grains of which can cause very serious allergy in a lot of people. And this Parthenium has come to India from North and South America, and it is now widespread across the country. And where it grows, it reduces crop yield. And like I was telling you, it causes health issues in humans and also in animals, which will chew upon its leaf. So Parthenium is pretty damaging to them as well. Each example is carefully selected. Like I was earlier telling you that in India, approximately 300 plus invasive species have been recorded by National Biological Diversity Authority. Like there have been various sources of this data, but a database has been created which lists more than 300 species. But these are some of the important examples which I felt might be important for your examination. And then black wattle, the tree that has spread invasively in Western Ghat, and mosquito fish, that is Gambusia. So it preys upon the native fish eggs, and that ways it reduces their number. उनके larvae को भी ये खाता है. So these are a couple of important examples from our country. Now let us see their impact on biological diversity. This segment, given the nature of unpredictable questions which spring up in the main examination, so if at all a question on invasive alien species ever features in the main examination, this section will be important for that. Here I have tried to substantiate it with examples wherever required. First and foremost, it causes competition to the native species, like Lantana camara threatens the native species like Acacia nilotica in our country. Then ecosystem disruption, like water hyacinth forms dense mat over the water surface, and that way it blocks sunlight. And because it blocks sunlight, so the aquatic plants which are in the lower parts of the water body, they would not be getting enough sunlight for photosynthesis. It will also be impacting the fish populations. Habitat modification, like Prosopis juliflora, it creates dense growth, and that way it hinders the movement of the animals. Since it competes with natives, it can lead to reduced biological diversity. It also impacts the wildlife because as the native species get edged out, the food supply for the native wildlife will be shrinking, and some of them are toxic to the animals. Some more, they can interfere with local species and then they can disrupt pollination and seed dispersal because the native species which were responsible for pollination and seed dispersal have been outcompeted partially by the invasive species. And then there are economic impact. The data compiled by National Biological Diversity Authority tells us that India has got more than 330 invasive species, and out of them 10 have caused the economic losses of approximately $127 billion in the last 60 years. This is an estimation, but imagine what kind of economic loss by causing pressure on the ecosystem, by causing pressure on the crop plants has been caused by these invasive species. And lastly, they kind of make the impact of climate change even worse for the ecosystem. Very often, climate change is an important driver of invasive alien species arrival and their flourishing at a new location. At the same time, climate change impact get further worsened if invasive alien species are thriving in a new location. So these are some of the impacts of invasive alien species. Now we are going to see how do we get to deal with the invasive alien species here. So control measures. So again, a table This table can be very handy if you are wanting to quickly revise the things, and this table can be equally handy if you are looking for points to write an answer in the main examination. So these are the key facts that you need to acquaint yourself. In our country, the main legal framework are two. First and foremost, the Biological Diversity Act of 2002. Biological Diversity Act specifically recognizes invasive alien species as a potent threat to native biodiversity, and it also has certain provisions to curb the invasive alien species spread. There are quarantine measures, etc., which have been mentioned in this legislation. Apart from that, the Plant Quarantine Order 2003, it regulates the import of plant material in a manner that accidentally or maybe by some destructive design, no invasive alien species, biological sample, germ plasm gets to enter the boundaries of our country. But we do need to implement this thing very strictly. At implementation level, the rule is still looking for some improvement, okay, to say the least. Then we have got a National Action Plan on Invasive Alien Species that is called NAPI-NVAS. It is action plan prepared by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and it focuses on prevention, detection, control and management. So all the dimensions of invasive alien species, they are covered by this National Action Plan. Geological Survey of India is carrying out research and preparing inventory of invasive alien species active within the country, and it has listed 157 alien invasive species within the country. And Center for Wildlife Studies, it is carrying out research and impact of invasiveness on Indian ecosystems and Indian fauna. There are management action plan for wetlands, and one of the key features of these management action plan is to control invasive species from spreading and dominating the wetlands. Economic impact assessment has been carried out by NBA, taking data from various sources, and it says that 127 billion have been lost in the last 60 years. And then a species-specific management, like for Lantana camara and Parthenium, we are taking specific measures in the country. And Himalayan Environmental Foundation is actively working to control Lantana camara in the Himalayan region. I was earlier telling you that Lantana camara is also a problem in the Himalayan region. So these are the things which India is already doing. There are a lot of activities which are being carried out by non-governmental organizations involving a lot of volunteers, but there are still things that we need to do, and the way forward would be these steps. So these are the 7 steps which I will include as way forward. First and foremost, we have to strengthen the domestic quarantine measures. The way we have got quarantine measures for any plant material or any biological material coming from an overseas destination. Similarly, for domestic movement of grains, domestic movement of agricultural products or germplasm, we need to have a strict screening and quarantine facility. We need to develop a comprehensive and regularly being updated national database on invasive alien species. We do have a list, undeniably, but we need to have a database which is constantly being updated so that all the stakeholders are aware of the impact and the extent of invasive alien species. If possible, we should be implementing the warning and awareness system. Awareness systems are easier to implement. Warning will be a little vague thing to implement, but still a lot of countries have got such warning systems. We have to ensure funding for basic research on managing invasive species. That kind of fund flow has also been lacking. there should be an exclusive legislation or policy to deal with invasive alien species. We are not having any policy or exclusive legislation. It is a part of Biological Diversity Act, and have been some rules. We should be investing in institutions which are responsible for biosecurity and coordination of various facets of invasive alien species and other dimensions of biosecurity. And we need to develop protocol for impact risk assessment, like if at all there is a movement of invasive alien species sample within the country, what is the impact it is likely to cause. So I think these are the things India can still be doing that will be creating resilience against the impact of invasive alien species. So, well, that is all on this topic. This was a small topic, but I have tried to bring together at one place all the relevant facts and concepts so that it becomes your one go-to source to have all the kind of relevant information on this topic. From here onwards, you can always update it as and when something appears in the newspaper or in the monthly magazine. But for now, this should suffice. So with that, I'm signing off. Goodbye and good luck, everyone. And I'll see you around very soon.